You are watching T to the M to the IDD.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? T to the M to the IDD. I am back with another one. This one I really think will help some of the beginner photographers that do portrait photography. Now, I was just out and about, minding my business, and I was able to see a lot of people creating content, and it just dawned on me, right? I seen the images that they were actually capturing, and it made me say to myself, like, some people think that their images are not good, and that is the farthest from the truth, especially like if you are a beginner photographer. Some of you are actually great. You actually have great images, great portraits. They are actually great. The problem is the post processing. Okay, so let me explain this just a little bit deeper. I think there are two major things beyond taking a photo where beginner photographers have a hiccup in their workflow. Now, the reason why I have come to this conclusion is because I've seen a lot of people take photos, and the photos look magnificent on the back of the camera. They look magnificent on the back of the camera, and it just makes me wonder. It really made me wonder, how do they go from what I see on the back of the camera to the final product? And it's really intriguing because some of the things that I see, I'm really curious as to how they were even able to edit a photo to that extent, if you will. I've seen some things are creative. So if you are creating these images and editing them with intent, then this message is not for you. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you aren't, I think this can help you. So let's jump into the two things that I believe can help any beginner portrait photographer. And I believe other photographers may be able to take something from this as well. Now, beyond taking the picture, one thing that needs to happen to help your images is the culling process. You have to know how to choose an image that is appealing, especially if you are using that image for your portfolio. And if you are using this for a business perspective, then you want this image to appeal to a certain audience in order to get you more business, right? So that actually starts before the culling process, where you need to be able to plan your photo shoots and be very intentional about the photo shoots that you have. And when I say be very intentional, I'm talking about when you're coming down to the composition, if you're using a rule of thirds, if you are doing specific things like capturing reflections, things that might be very unique to make that image stand out. And that is all in the planning process, as well as when you are on location or in studio and you have a very, very distinct look that you are going for. That creative process happens there, because if you don't create those images there, then when you go to the culling process, you won't have anything to call that is unique or that is special or gives you that type of moment when you go to call your images. So make sure you be intentional beforehand so that the creativity actually translate when you need to go call your images. Now, when we go into the culling process, you really want to look through your images and look for those images that are really special to you. Now, we are all at different levels, so this is going to be subjective to different photographers, but try to take your time and look through the images and try to critique yourself almost in a sense and pick the best of the best. You really want to take your time and find those images. Me personally, whenever I do a shoot, I always try to have at least 3 good images. And now that I've been doing this for some time, I can actually look once I'm through with a certain scene, if I'm on location, and I can say, okay, I know that's one right there. Okay, I got one right here, and I can go on. But it does take time to be able to get to that point. So when you are culling, take your time, look for those techniques that you have studied, look for those great poses. You're working with models, that spectacular lighting. If you see something with blown out highlights and you have multiple choices, pass by it. Do a first pass, okay, and shrink down your size, your choices, and do another pass until you really get a good selection. Also, that goes back to the shooting time. When you're shooting, take multiple images, okay? If you have one composition, that one pose, you can get several different images just by moving around your subject, okay? And doing micro posing with your subject. You can get so many different poses just by the fine adjustments, and that will give you more images to be able to choose from when you go to cull. So the first thing is the culling process. Be very intentional in your culling. Take your time and only select the best of the best. Now, once we are finished with the culling process, the second thing is you have to edit your images. And I'm going to tell you, from what I see on the back of the screen to some of the edits that I end up seeing, it is a night and day difference. And honestly, I don't know what happens from those 2 points, but that is a difference maker from your images. Now, either your color grading could be off, you over edit your image. And so I want to provide a solution that may help you baseline your edits. One thing that I always do is I shoot RAW plus JPEG. The JPEG just acts as a preset that is applied from the camera onto the image that already gives you the color grade, and you can kind of see what the image looks like right out of the camera, which that is a great starting point, because sometimes when I shoot my images, I look at my JPEGs, and my JPEGs are great straight out of camera. And I won't lie, sometimes I use my JPEG straight out of camera. Don't judge me, don't kill me in the comments, but sometimes I do, because they are just that good. Now, you have that JPEG as a baseline. You have it as a reference. So now you have your JPEG and you have your RAW file. Everybody likes to shoot RAW. I'm telling you, RAW plus JPEG. Just give it a try. Leave me a comment. Come back to this video and tell me what you thought about it. I think it's probably one of the underutilized tools that we have. It doesn't cost as much memory space to have a JPEG attached to your RAW file. So now that you have this reference JPEG, you can see what the image looked like straight out of camera. 9 times out of 10, if you shot it great, this image probably already looks good. Now, if you want to go with the RAW file, you can always refer back to this JPEG just to see what it originally looked like out of the camera versus where you took that edit to. Now, some people have different styles. Some people edit creatively, and if that is you, then go with your creative style and do your thing. But if you are somebody who likes to edit true to color and keep things as realistic as possible, then this is definitely for you. That reference image can help you in terms of the color grading. You can look where your raw color grade is versus where the JPEG. It can kind of bring you back from doing too much. Everything with the editing process is very subtle, very subtle. Sometimes we overdo it and we don't have any reference to tell us that we overdid it, so we don't know. Okay, so when we overdo it, you can go back to that JPEG and say, oh man, that might be too much color. Okay, let me dial that color back, because sometimes if you push those colors too much, then your image stops looking realistic and it looks as though it is a cartoon. Same thing with frequency separation. Sometimes you overdo the frequency separation to the point where the skin is too smooth, you don't have any texture. Okay, what can we do? Go back to that JPEG. Oh, you can see you do have some texture here, so let me dial back my frequency separation. Okay, now my image is looking flat because the dodge and burn, I done took it too far. I don't have any highlight to shadow transitions. You go back to the JPEG and you can see those highlight to shadow transitions. So now you know you can go back to your raw and you need to dial it back. So that is the best thing about having that JPEG when you're editing your raw file. It can act as a great reference for you to keep your edit as realistic as possible. Okay, so those are the two things that I have seen that really struck a nerve in me to say, you know what, like, some of these portrait photographers think that their work is not good, and that is not the case. What I'm seeing on the back of the camera versus the final product is just simply a problem with your process that you can actually correct. And I think that between the culling process and the editing is a big one. It is a big one. I think the color grading with the editing is the one that gives people the most problem. So definitely take my advice. Try to use that JPEG as a reference and try to be as subtle as possible with your editing. I promise it will help you in a long run. We all know that light is the key for photography, so perfecting your light is always a must as well. But those two things, I think, can take you a long way. So I hope this has helped. I hope this helps you become better as a portrait photographer. And until the next video, T to the M to the IDD. Peace.
What is going on, guys? You just tuned in to T to the M to the IDD. And if you enjoy this content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you really enjoy the content, check out some more of the videos that you see right here. Oh yeah, and hit that like button for me.